Hello everybody, welcome back to KXP. No time to waste because we are going to Jool. This is the same satellite that you saw us build in the last episode, so there's no point sticking around showing you all the different pieces of it. I did upgrade the communication dishes as well as the solar panels to be a little bit more advanced. However, beyond that, it's still the same ion-powered satellite that is going to be capable of going into deep space. This one, however, will not be going to Jool, but rather in a near Jool orbit, because this one is going to be our communication satellite that helps us maintain contact with our probe going to Jool later in this episode. We're going to be sending 2 communication satellites out into deep space, this one close to Jool and another one between the orbits of Moho and Duna. And hopefully with both of those we'll have some solid connection to our crafts going forward. But I'm pleased to say that today we will be seeing the green crown jewel of the Kerbal system, and this begins the Julian program that we will be completing next. We will be visiting all the moons and eventually landing and planting a flag on every single one of them as we aim to conquer Kerbal Space Program. But anyways, we are now revealing the satellite. As you see here, we've got a little bit beefier solar panels. I did add some extra stages on there. As you can see, some asparagus stage side boosters that will help us not have to spend so much time burning out into the rendezvous that we needed. The ion engines were good enough to do it on their own, but this saves us a little bit of time, so that's always advisable. Here I've got the 2 upgraded communication dishes rather than the dish itself. Those are just the reflectors, and those tiny little lasers that I activated earlier are the actual communication dishes. So very interesting stuff. It's not anything I've used before. It's from the Near Future Communication. I can't remember the name of the mod, but it's from the Near Future pack, and gives us a very massive amount of distance that it can cover. Still not very used to it. Still using remote tech, so that makes our communications much more challenging, much more realistic, and have to take a lot more into consideration. Sometimes it will punish you for being lazy. But, you know, we have shown getting ourselves to orbit several times before, so let's just go ahead and skip forward into the interplanetary space. And we're going to set Jool as our target because it looked like we have almost a close little approach there, but not nearly enough to make a rendezvous. So instead, I'm just going to launch it a little bit farther out. A little bit higher of an orbit than Jool has, and then we're going to circularize at the apoapsis. However, that's going to be several years from now that is going to take us to get there. So we are going to do this maneuver, get ourselves out there, and then plot in the circularization, and then keep moving forward. Clean separation of the lure stage. I did not put any explosives on any of these stages. Unfortunately, I should have. We're going to be creating a lot of space trash here today, but that's okay. As long as we remember to clean it up eventually, it'll keep our save file from getting too laggy. I love these shots. Seeing where the boosters go. I wish you could follow them for a lot longer. Our craft is, you know, on autopilot now. It can handle itself. I'd love to see where these things go. But nonetheless, we have to return to whatever is within 2,000 meters. As we see here, we are now burning through the last of that stage, moving on to the ion engines. And it was useful to have that. We could have made a little bit beefier of an engine. We could have used nuclear power and gotten a lot farther. In fact, we didn't need to really use ion engines for this at all, and it's quite a large craft to have ion power. But, you know, I had not really used ion power a lot, and I thought it would be fun to make a probe out of this. But as you see here, there's a significant downtime with ion engines, and this was a real-time 25-minute burn. Thankfully, we can physics warp, but as you see at the nav ball, it whips around a little wildly, so it does mean that you're not going to be as accurate. But for this, we didn't need the accuracy. We got ourselves to our desired apoapsis, plotted in our circularization burn, put into the Kerbal alarm clock, and now we've got another one of the same exact type of satellite. However, this one has a few more communication dishes, as it will cover a few more planets. And this is the one that's going to go between Moho and Duna. Clean separation of our side boosters. No recovery aspects on that at all. This is a bit of a wasteful mission. However, you know, I was just I'm just too excited to get to the next stage in our progress, to the point that these aren't even actually ideal launch windows. We could save a whole lot more Delta V by launching our crafts a little bit later, by spending some time warping to a better window. You know, we could have saved some Delta V, but I was impatient and I wanted to get there, and I feel like, oh, look at this engine. I love the amount of details that this game has on the rocketry parts. This isn't even RP1. Look at that detailing. But anyways, I wanted to get myself out to, I wanted to get to Jool on a less than opportune transfer window, because I wanted to prove that we can do it no matter what. If we want to go to Jool, we can plan a thing. If we don't mind waiting, if we don't mind our Kerbals just eating up a few more of their snacks, breathing up a little bit more of their oxygen, then we can go on our own timeline. So now that we've reached our apoapsis, we're going to go ahead and circularize, plot that into flight computer as well as Kerbal alarm clock. So back again at the launch pad for our final launch of the... Oh, I just noticed I never changed the flags. We could have changed our mission flags to the Jool program. We should do that in the next episode. I literally just noticed that right now. Not even in editing, not even in gameplay. But regardless, this is the flight I want to spend the most time with. This is the Jool Probe 1, designed to dip into the atmosphere and see what kind of gaseous giant we're looking at. What is this green jewel in the sky that piqued our Kerbal's interest so much? And so, yeah, this is going to be our first interplanetary flight in the Janus project. This is going to be my first time at Jool on this channel entirely at all, outside of other series that we shall not name. But this is the first time that I've actually even been to Jool as a player. Like, you know, I never really did this in my personal playthroughs. I was one of the many Kerbal players, I believe, I don't know what the statistic is offhand, but supposedly something to the tune of like 70 or 75% of Kerbal players never go outside of Kerbin's sphere of influence. You know, the Mun and Mintz, and they make jets and fly around and submarines and all sorts of stuff like that. But interplanetary is a bit of a challenge, and you know, some people just, that's not as interesting to them as making, you know, super realistic fighter planes and stuff like that. So it's understandable. I'm not saying anything about Kerbal players who don't go to other planets, but I'm just saying that I was one of them. So the Janus project, escaping Kerbin, KXP, all of that is designed to get me out of my comfort zone of the Mun and Mintz, and to visit places like this and see the beauties that parallax provides, volumetric clouds, all of that. And so I'm so excited to get here on today's episode. I've been waiting for this particular episode, regardless of where we went. I was so excited to just start going interplanetary in this series, and so I hope you are as well, because this opens the door now that we are at Jool. That means, we can go to Lathe, we can go to Bop, we can go to Val, all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to name all the moons because I'm sure I'm going to forget or misplace one, but you get the point. We are jumping back to the craft. We're inflating the heat shield here. We're going to have limited communication through the majority of the flight, and even though we do have these beefy satellite dishes and we have the 2 that we placed in orbit, unfortunately, once we get to Jool, we are going to be on the far side of it. And as you saw our trajectory, we are going to be passing through the atmosphere, and these communication dishes the communication dishes can retract, but the solar panels cannot. So this craft is destined to be injured pretty gravely, and while our communication dishes are retracted, we will have no probe control. So it is important to inflate. All of that was to say that it was important to inflate our heat shield now while we have the chance. I really want to be very careful with my Kerbals. We are playing where Kerbals do not respawn. We are playing with TAC life support, so they need to have, food, water, oxygen, waste to get rid of the carbon dioxide, and so on and so forth. So with those realisms, we got to take extra precautions with our Kerbals, and so for the most part I've been very hesitant about risking them. As we saw from the POV episode, you can very easily lose control of your craft and send a Kerbal out into a 20-year orbit of the sun before you can get them back, and if they don't have the life support necessary for that, well then we're going to be holding a memorial for them, and nobody likes that. So instead, you have to think very carefully about your resources. However, the other problem that we're having in this series is we're using remote tech, as I mentioned before, the very realistic communications network that's necessary. And I've been slacking on creating that because sometimes I feel like that's not the most interesting of content, just getting a satellite network up and running. It is a bit tedious and time consuming, and so I've been focusing more on trying to break milestones instead. However, a workaround that we can do with this is getting a Kerbal in orbit to help control. I'm going to take a pause from that idea for a second and just point out the fact that we are moving very quickly here because we are quickly going to run out of communication. In all my tests, I realized on the exit of the Kerbin Sphere of Influence, we lose control, so I want to make sure that we get our maneuver plotted in and all the pieces together beforehand, programmed into Flight Computer so it can handle itself automatically. I'm struggling here with the time delay because I forget that it doesn't like caps lock. You shouldn't do caps lock when you're typing in your signal delay, so we're going to type in 1 year, 141 days, and 2 hours. Hit enter, and there we go. And this is when I realized that my solar panels don't retract. I'm going to delete that time delay and just try to retract them now, but unfortunately that's when I see, they're just, once they go out, they go out. So instead, I'm going to put that delay back on, 1 year, 141 days, 2 hours, and we're going to retract our communication dishes. And so that'll keep a little bit of our craft from burning up. Now I'm going to try to focus on the probe core, but of course it is way too dark, so we're going to use Planet Shine to brighten that up. But the idea that I'm going for here is I'm hoping that there's a control that I can click on to point ourselves prograde and just hold prograde here, because I can't change my focus right now because we're using Flight Computer to hold us to the target. However, I realized that I could have adjusted the action group mid-flight, added an action group to point at prograde, and then just plotted in that action group into Flight Computer. However, I didn't think about that at the time, and nonetheless, we'll just deal with wherever it points when we get there. So, for the future, I can remember that next time. As you see here, our periapsis is now 172 kilometers above the surface, or quote-unquote surface, of Jool, which is within the atmosphere. So our heat shield being deployed is a necessity. And thankfully we got everything done that we wanted to. So now comes the exit of Kerbin's sphere of influence. We're going to go ahead and focus back on our craft so we can watch it escape. We don't see our trajectory line. Unfortunately, I don't know why that was happening, but nonetheless, we are heading away from the home planet out into the orbit of the sun and now into interplanetary space. So we're going to add an alarm here at the sphere of influence change because we are going to have to change to one of our other crafts that we launched earlier. As you can see there, it is rapidly approaching its apoapsis, and we're going to need to take control so the flight computer can execute the maneuver that it needs to. It's a very time-sensitive mission, and I think that's going to be the case from now on. We're going to need to balance a lot of our crafts and keep an eye on multiple parts of our mission at the same time. We learned that in the last episode because we wanted to do this mission in the last episode, but we realized that we needed to stock up our Kerbals at the space station because just in the time alone that it has taken us to get here, they would have run out of supplies, and we can't have that. So now we're going to jump to the other ship. We see that the circularization burn is plotted into flight computer. Everything is ready to be handled. It is a 26.5 minute burn, which is very, very, very unfortunate. The ion engines are unpleasant to have to deal with. But it helps if you need to get up and go make a cup of coffee or check the mail and go run an errand, whatever, and come back 25 minutes later. Flight computer is perfect for having that. I'm struggling here because I can't separate the next stage to continue on to the ion engines because we have no connection. But that was only because there was a planet blocking Kerbin from the communication. So we time warp ahead, we hit enter spacebar, and then nothing happens for 123 seconds. We time warp forward and then see our engine separate. And we wonder why, and then we realize that out this far, there is a time delay, and that is part of remote tech. That's part of its realism, that you send a communication to a probe, but it can only go so fast. It's going to take a little while for that probe to get there, to receive that signal, and to activate it. So that's something that we're going to have to keep in mind as we start going farther and farther away from the home planet. But anyways, this is actually an hour-long burn for this, and I'm having trouble time warping all that, and I just didn't have an hour to focus on fully just this burn. So I decided I can't kill it because we have no communications, and I don't want to sit here watching this for so long. So we just switched off back to our main craft, and hopefully that satellite will stop its burn when it needed to, or maybe stopped it when we left it. But either way, we may have an interstellar probe on our hands. But anyways, focusing back on this, we are getting close, 27 days to the time warped area that we have put. We want to keep an eye out. We don't want to whip on past it, not see it at all. We don't want to just crash completely into the atmosphere and the next thing we know, we just have an explosion, see nothing. Because that's not the point of this, If we crash and burn, then we at least need to get a show out of it. So we are going to take it nice and slow, time warp only to an approximate area, and then we're going to focus back on the craft. 5 days until we reach Jool. Our time warp ends. And now we can just focus on our approach. Such a beautiful planet. Such a glorious and dangerous celestial body. Violently whipping around with storms. Thunderous roars every other second. We're going to get to see it. I put our periapsis within the atmosphere so that way we can utilize some of the aerodynamic drag to slow us down and hopefully come into an orbit. However, since we will have most likely ripped off most parts of our craft, there's no point in trying to make this a permanent satellite. So I'm fully content in dipping below the atmosphere and seeing what this place is made of. We got a lathe over there, beautifully seen. You can see the oceans and the clouds. Wonderful. That is going to be our target next, I think. But we'll see. The stowing of the communication dishes happened automatically because we had programmed it into Flight Computer. If we had better solar panels, or at least ones that retracted, they would have been brought in as well. And if I had remembered to set up the action group, I could have this pointed prograde completely. Look at that texture. That is from Blackrock's volumetric clouds, I believe. I don't think that's parallax that adds this quality to it, but I could be mistaken. But beautiful storms over there to the right. You know, you can see the eyes, the hurricane over there, and then you've got the layers of clouds here. They're all various aspects. Unfortunately, due to just our approach and the limited amount of control that we have over this probe, we are going to be descending into the dark side of the planet, and therefore our view of Jool's interior will be limited, to say the least. But we are going to be doing this again soon, probably with a smaller probe, and hopefully with full communication on the way down so we can send our science data back to the main ship. Like I mentioned before, I think we're going to, or actually to continue that thought because I don't think I finished it, but we are going to be sending Kerbals here sooner rather than later. You know, I've been taking a very big probes first approach. However, we are limited with the communications that I mentioned before and remote tech and all that. And I do want to have some forward momentum in this series. I want to make some progress. I want to plant another flag. I want Kerbals down on the surface. Not on this surface, but, you know, any surface. And so we're going to send Kerbals here. I think we're going to start working on building kind of like a mothership. It may take a couple episodes to put together, get up into space, assemble, all that. But we're going to build a craft capable of housing Kerbals for 100 years, you know. And it's going to have a science station. It's going to have all sorts of stuff that can be docked to. We're going to have the ability that it can refuel crafts. And we're going to use this as our main hub around Jool that we can start exploring these moons with. And, you know, if we can just send, we'll just send, you know, the landers that we need or the crew that's going to work on the mission. We'll, you know, ferry them back and forth. We've got a cryogenics mod installed. So worst case scenario, we can just freeze all of our Kerbals, except for one. There has to be a dedicated thumb twiddler, but we can just put them in deep sleep for a while and, you know, get them when we can get them. But yeah, so I think in the upcoming episodes we're going to be working on that kind of deep space, or not deep space, but Julian mothership to get some Kerbals out here, because we could conquer the Julian system pretty easily if we get a decent enough craft that can refuel and travel and you know, drop science off at the space station and then come back, land on a different moon, plant a flag, come back, land on a different moon, plant a flag. We can get this all done, move on forward, and race ahead in the space race, because we've been pretty nice with POV. You know, we've been trying to helpful as much as we can, but come on. We know who the true winners are. Look at this. How can you say no to this viewpoint? I was very thankful that we were pointed mostly prograde. It wasn't exactly, but mostly prograde when we approached, so that action group that I neglected didn't quite matter. As we see here, our apoapsis is coming down significantly quickly, and we are going to be achieving orbit in no time. I thought the atmospheric limit was 200 kilometers, but I feel like I may have misread that, because we are hurtling through there very quickly. Very hot re-entry, but beautiful. Hi, Lathe. We'll see you soon. We've got submarines and hovercrafts made especially for you. So now we are in orbit, but we are still in the atmosphere, so that means that we are actually going to descend now. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, on the dark side. But that's okay. We've got our planet shine turned up, so we'll be able to see our craft. Even though it is nighttime on Jool, the Julian atmosphere does not disappoint. I didn't want to time warp on the way down because when you time warp, you don't get to see the flashes of lightning, and it just ends up being a dark surface at your approach. We take one look at the service bay filled with science experiments and see that we have no communication. And as much as we would love to learn what we can about the atmosphere, we cannot. And those two innocent little mystery goos have resigned to their fate of being crushed by atmospheric pressures, unable to send back the data that they know. I'm going to turn up planet shine a little bit so we can fully see our craft. But we will be coming back with more experiments soon enough. And like I mentioned before, the smaller probe that we send will hopefully have communication, so the mystery goose will not have died in vain. So that is where this episode will be coming to a close, because there's nothing else we can do with this craft except for watch it descend to the crushing depths of a surprising negative 75 kilometers below the surface. It took forever for it to break, and I didn't want to time warp it because I didn't want to miss the explosion, but you know, it took over 20 minutes for it to fall, and there's no need to focus on that. We will get to that at another point, and honestly, Jool on the light side is much more interesting, so we will focus our time on that when we come back here again. But anyways, that is where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more KXP. If you did, think about subscribing. Drop me a like, let me know your thoughts, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.